Hello, you're on the Ruslan Belov channel. Today we'll discuss the situation in Ukraine as of April 10th, 2025. Before we begin, I'd like to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. Today, the most interesting, loud, and perhaps even unexpected news is coming from the Toretsk direction, or more accurately, the Kostyantynivka direction. Pay attention to the number of geolocations just from the past 24 hours. Overall, the quantity, distribution, and intensity of these geolocations suggest that the Russian Federation has launched a decisive offensive, possibly with the goal of advancing as close as possible to the settlement of Kostyantynivka, or at least making significant progress at this stage. Additionally, a large number of geolocations from this sector support this theory, and some of them are very strange. Well, let's take it step by step. We'll start with the settlement of Toretsk. Pay attention to this frontline adjustment between Toretsk and Lyman. This small corridor, this narrow stretch. What happened here? Why was the map marked this way? Since early this morning, Ukrainian sources have been publishing this video. The footage is of very poor quality, making it hard to discern much. However, some pro-Ukrainian OSINT accounts, as well as some pro-Russian ones, have broken it down scene by scene and managed to geolocate many of the locations where these clips were filmed, all these explosions. There are 5 episodes in total, 3 of which have been geolocated, the first, second, and fourth, which in my opinion is the most crucial one. However, this 4th episode was only confirmed by pro-Ukrainian OSINTers. Pro-Russian sources still have doubts. And here, it's less about doubt and more about sheer surprise. Could this really have happened where it was geolocated? Now let's return to the map. Based on these geolocations, the armed forces of the Russian Federation, either today or last night, launched an offensive. As a result of this advance along the T05-16 highway, Russian units managed to bypass this mine and push further north along the 05-16 route, all the way to Lyman. Ukrainian sources are calling it a complete disaster. They report that the Russian army simply rolled down this road, dropping off troops at certain intervals. Russian units reportedly reached Lyman, dismounted, abandoned their vehicles, as expected, and set up a circular defense. Of course, Ukrainian sources add that reinforcements later arrived, and Russian forces were eventually pushed back from this sector. However, there's no confirmation of this counterattack, neither through geolocations nor any other published evidence. What we do have is footage of the initial breakthrough. As for pro-Russian sources, they confirm that at the very least, Russian units were present at this location in the video. Let's look again. These are literally the first frames. Here we can see a Russian armored vehicle moving north along this road. So if we summarize everything happening here, we get a very interesting situation. Now, this particular publication comes from pro-Ukrainian OSINT TERS. They've mapped out the entire route of the Russian advance, reporting that Akhmat units took part in this offensive. According to these pro-Ukrainian sources, the offensive began like this, and based on all these geolocations, the attack involved at least 2 groups. The first group's task was to break through the defenses, but without stopping near the mine. It's possible there was either a rotation or that Ukrainian forces at the mine had already been significantly weakened in previous days. Alternatively, there might have been some kind of informal agreement allowing Russian units to pass through toward the north. Right now, that's not what's important. What is important is that during the offensive, Russian vehicles broke through to the north toward Lyman, where they were later abandoned. According to objective control footage published by the Ukrainian side, the vehicles were hit and abandoned. But what happened to the dismounted troops remains unclear. At the same time as this attack, a second wave of the offensive began, targeting the mine itself, this territory. This is the largest and most strategically important fortified area of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kostyantynivka direction. In fact, the entire southern Kostyantynivka defensive line is built around this mine. At the moment, it is unclear how the fighting is unfolding at the mine. Most likely, an assault is underway. So far, no additional information or details have been published online. It's very difficult to assess the overall situation, but the operation itself is more or less clear. That is, the Russian units in Nelipivka served as a blocking force, whose main task was to prevent any reinforcements from Kostyantynivka from reaching the mine. If we look at the map again, there's only one road, T0516, leading to this fortified area, which is crucial for Ukrainian forces. If the Ukrainian command decides to send reinforcements, and they likely already have, those troops will eventually run into Russian positions near Nelipivka. The key question now is, how long can Russian forces hold their ground in Nelipivka and prevent Ukrainian armor from advancing toward the mine? If we look at the mine itself, infantry reinforcements could theoretically be sent there, but they would have to cross the Toretsk River and traverse open fields, areas already under surveillance by Russian drones, likely using fiber optic reconnaissance. This would inevitably result in heavy losses and, most importantly, take too much time, something Ukrainian forces don't have if they want to stabilize the situation. So, as we can see, a very serious and interesting operation is unfolding here, and we may receive more details soon. Other offensive actions near Toretsk. This wasn't the only offensive operation near Toretsk today. Based on geolocations and the number of markers, heavy fighting is also reported north of Druzhba, toward settlements like Yuzhna and Pivnichna Delivka, as well as Bila Hora, essentially along the Siversky-Donetsk-Donbas canal. This area has seen numerous objective control footage showing Russian artillery strikes on temporary Ukrainian positions, machine gun nests, mortar crews, and FPV drone operator sites. While it's too early to speak of any major Russian advances, Ukrainian sources confirm gradual movement along the canal. However, neutral mapmakers paint a slightly different picture. Some report a Ukrainian counterattack, claiming that Ukrainian forces have entered the northwestern part of Druzhba and pushed back Russian units near the canal. There's no geolocation proof yet, but older footage from this sector shows Russian drone strikes on Ukrainian forward positions in these fields. Summary of the situation. If we summarize the fighting along the canal and the advances from Toretsk toward Pleshivka, it's clear that something major is brewing. The coming hours and days will be decisive for this front. The pace of the offensive may increase as early as today or tomorrow. However, the push north toward Kostyantynivka is not the main objective. A significant number of markers are also coming from the H-20 highway pocket, where Russian forces have expanded their zone of control over the past 24 hours. Changes on the map. Let's look at how the map has changed. Yesterday, it looked like this, zooming in. Today, some mapmakers are marking additional adjustments, starting with Novorodsk and Romanivka. According to some sources, Russian forces have slightly improved their positions northwest of Novorodsk and advanced close to strongpoints between Romanivka and Novorodsk. This suggests a gradual northwest push to establish control over key sections of the front and dominate the H-20 highway, cutting off supplies to Ukrainian forces south of it. There are also reports of expanded Russian positions around Rozivka, Oleksandropil, and Panteleimonnivka. Yesterday, most maps looked like this, but today minor adjustments have been made. Based on neutral sources, we can see movement northwest from Panteleimonnivka, likely aiming to outflank Valentinivka and Sukha-Balka, securing the tree-line intersection to get within firing range of the supply route leading to two small villages. The distance here is already less than 2 kilometers, close enough for fire control. Additionally, the encirclement of the pocket between Oleksandropil and Karamik is tightening. Today, reports indicate that Russian forces have broken through Ukrainian defenses in Kalinove, and as of April 10th, neutral and pro-Russian sources claim at least 50% of the village is under Russian control. The company's strongpoint in the southern part of Kalinov has come under Russian control. As for the rest of the village, this information is currently only reported by pro-Russian sources, with no objective control footage available. Here, we can also observe Russian forces attempting to push towards Stara Mykolaiivka to gain control over supply routes and split the front into smaller, more manageable segments, making it easier to deal with Ukrainian units individually. Increased activity near Terasivka. Mapmakers are also noting renewed assaults in the direction of Terasivka, with further advances expected toward Oleksandropil. Over the past 24 hours, attacks have been launched along at least 4 axes in this sector, aiming to fragment Ukrainian defenses and allow Russian forces to tackle isolated pockets one by one. The attack toward Nelipivka plays a key role in Russia's offensive south of the Klebenbeek Reservoir. The T-0522 road, running through Pleshchivka and Nelipivka, serves as a critical supply route connecting to T-0524, which leads to the H-20 highway. Cutting this artery could sever Ukrainian logistics and potentially collapse the entire defensive line in this area. Chasiv Yar, a diversionary front. Little news is coming from Chasiv Yar, but a large number of artillery strikes and aerial bombardments have been reported. This heightened activity is likely tied to Russian operations on the Toretsk axis, with the goal of diverting Ukrainian attention and allowing the southern offensive to advance more rapidly. Meanwhile, further north along the M03 highway, Bakhmut-Sloviansk, concentrated strikes suggest Russia is targeting Ukrainian troop concentrations. This could indicate preparations for a Ukrainian counterattack aimed at drawing away Russian reserves and preventing a breakthrough near Toretsk or Klebenbeek. Kursk direction, Zhuravka captured. Today, the Russian Ministry of Defense confirmed that the settlement of Zhuravka is now under full Russian control. Objective control footage later emerged, showing Russian troops raising their unit's flag over the village. With Zhuravka secured, fighting is now shifting toward the next key settlement, Belovody. Meanwhile, intense combat is unfolding further east, in the triangle between Basivka, Lokhnya, and Oleshnya. Basivka, Russian forces attempted to mass for an assault, but Ukrainian sources released footage of preemptive strikes disrupting their formations. Oleshnya. For days, Russia has been hammering the village with FAB glide bombs, rockets, MLRS, artillery, and thermobaric weapons, Sontsepiok. Despite the bombardment, Ukraine still holds Oleshnya, though assaults are now coming from at least two directions. South of Oleshnya, a Ukrainian tank firing from concealed positions was destroyed by an FPV drone, confirming active clashes in the area. Minor adjustments are also being made west of Oleshnya, where Russian forces are attempting to outflank Unakivka from the northwest. Kupansk direction, renewed offensive preparations. After a lull in fighting near Kamyanka, where Russian advances stalled last week, heavy weaponry has now been deployed. Footage shows TOS-1A Sontsepiok thermobaric systems striking Ukrainian positions near Kamyanka, Stroivka, and Topoli, signaling an imminent resumption of offensive operations. On the Borov axis, Russian forces have made minor advances near Nove, a settlement that remains a daily focal point of fighting. Toretsk Kostyantynivka axis. Russian forces are pressuring supply lines and fragmenting defenses, with Nelipivka as a key blocking position. Chasiv Yar, heavy shelling suggests a diversionary effort to support southern advances. Kursk direction, Zhuravka captured, focus shifting to Belovody and Oleshnya. Kupiansk. After a pause, thermobaric strikes indicate a new offensive phase is beginning. The next 24 to 48 hours will be critical in determining whether Russia can capitalize on these advances or if Ukraine will stabilize the front with counterattacks. Today, there have been fewer geolocations and markers from this sector. Only a small adjustment has been reported by neutral mapmakers in the southern part of Nadia. A minor section of the front line has shifted under Russian control, though no visual confirmation is available yet. However, on the northern flank of the Chernishki axis, there are confirmed adjustments near Nadia. Pro-Russian analysts claim the village has been fully cleared by Russian forces, but we are still waiting for geolocated evidence. Meanwhile, footage from the 20th Combined Arms Army, Guards, shows strikes on Ukrainian positions beyond Nadia, shifting toward Novosergeyivka. Key detail: yesterday's footage of a Russian soldier raising a flag has now been geolocated to the forest area south of Nadia. While we mark the forest as controlled, the village itself may still have pockets of Ukrainian resistance. Lyman sector advances near Torska. The first confirmed footage of Russian advances near Torska has emerged. While the village itself remains unconfirmed, areas north of it near Yampolivka show Russian troops in control after clashes with Ukraine's 63rd Brigade. Ukrainian forces released footage of strikes on Russian positions near woodland intersections between Yampolivka and Torsk. Based on this, we can confirm Russian control over this segment, suggesting further moves toward Torsky itself may follow soon. Siversk direction, no major changes. Russian forces have slightly pushed Ukrainian units back west of Zolotarivka and southwest of Bilogorivka, securing several tree lines and strongpoints. Thermobaric strikes, Solntsepiok, continue near Bilogorivka, targeting Ukrainian positions along the Siversky Donets River. Given the short-range nature of these strikes, a ground assault may follow shortly. Pokrovsk sector, unexpected lull. For the first time in days, no updates have come from the Udakna-Kotline-Pisky area. Ukrainian Skala unit released footage from Pisky, but it's unclear if it's recent or archival. The 425th Battalion reportedly attempted another assault on Pisky, but without time-stamped evidence, we're holding off on map adjustments. Bodhivvka, preparing for an assault. Geolocations indicate Russian forces are gearing up to storm Bodhivvka. Heavy strikes on Ukrainian temporary bases and forward positions in the southeastern part of the village. Two possible scenarios: a flanking maneuver towards strongpoint T0518, a direct push into southeastern Bodhivvka to establish a foothold, Chevchenko direction, drone warfare intensifies increased drone activity and strikes north of Chevchenko toward Voskresenka. FAB glide bombs and FPV drones are targeting Ukrainian field movements and positions. Russia may be preparing a flanking operation to breach Ukrainian defenses near Shevchenko and Voskresenka, potentially collapsing this frontline segment. Zaporizhia sector, closing in on Kupansk. Pro-Russian and neutral mapmakers report Russian forces have significantly narrowed the gap to Kupansk. Yesterday there was still a buffer zone. Today it's practically gone, suggesting assault preparations are complete. Final summary. Chernishki, Nadia, forest secured, village still contested. Lyman, advances near Torsk, control confirmed in northern approaches. Siversk, thermobaric strikes hint at imminent assault near Bilogorivka. Pokrovsk, unusual silence, possible Ukrainian regrouping. Bodhivvka, Russian forces positioning for a storm. Shevchenko, flanking maneuvers may destabilize the front line. Zaporizhia, Kupansk, now within immediate striking range. The next 24 to 48 hours could bring major shifts on multiple fronts. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and stay tuned for further updates.